Hi everyone, Anthony Morganti here. In today's video, I'm going to show you one of my favorite plugins for Lightroom and Photoshop. That is Nik Silver Efex. More specifically, Silver Efex 7. If you're like most people, you probably shoot color in camera. You would use Silver Efex to convert and edit that image into black and white. Now, personally, I haven't been editing in black and white as much as I used to, although a few years ago, I did do a project where I photographed all of the statues in Buffalo's Forest Lawn Cemetery. Here are a few of those photos. I used Silver Efex to edit all of these images. Now, Silver Efex works as a plugin in Lightroom and Photoshop, as I mentioned. It also works as a plugin, I believe, in Photolab. It also will work as a standalone application, although it does not work on RAW files. It will only work on JPEGs and TIFFs. I most often use Silver Efex as a plugin in Lightroom, and that's the way I'll be using it in this video. Now, what I usually do is I start my edit in Lightroom, and usually I just, straighten it or crop. If I need to, I will edit tone, and that's pretty much it. For this specific image, you can see it's a little bit crooked, so I'm going to straighten it first. I'm going to go to the crop tool and I'll come off the image. I get this double arrow. I'll just click and push up to straighten it. And by the way, I do have some recent videos where I demonstrate my Lightroom Classic workflow. So I'm not going to go into great detail about why I'm doing things in Lightroom the way I'm editing in Lightroom. You could check out those videos where I go into great detail of why I do things and in what order I do things. Now, I am going to ultimately convert this image to black and white and edit it in black and white. So I'm not so concerned about white balance and profiles and, vibrance and saturation. So what I'm going to do though, is I'm going to go to the basic tab and I'm going to edit tone. And what I like to do is I start with highlights. I'll zoom into the brightest area, which is up here, and I'll bring highlights down until I see some detail kind of pop in. You can see some detail popped in there. And then I'll zoom into the darker area, maybe down in here, and then I'll open up shadows until I see some detail kind of pop in those shadows right in there, like that. Then I'll zoom out and I'll get a white point. And the way I do it is I hold the Option key on my Mac, it's Alt key on a PC, click on the white slider, I'll get an entirely black screen, well, almost entirely black. There is a little bit of color coming through specular highlights of this car off here in the distance. So you can see that there. But I'm not too worried about that. I move this to the right until I see more color come through, and then I'll back it off till most of that color is gone. That color means you're blowing out the highlights in those areas, and typically I don't like to blow out the highlights too much, but that looks pretty good. For the black, same thing. I'll hold the Option key in on my Mac, Alt key on a PC, click, and I get almost entirely white screen where you see some color come through. It's mean I'm crushing the shadows in those areas, and I have basically absolute black there, but I don't mind crushing the shadows a little bit. I think it gives my image a lot of tonal range. So I kind of like that. Now, the next step typically is like texture, clarity, dehaze, and I usually use masking for that. But for this image, I don't have to worry about any of that because I could do that in Silver Efex. What I do next, though, usually before I go into masking in Lightroom, is I will use the Remove tool and remove anything that needs to be removed. Now, I'd like to remove these branches over here on the right, and I'd like to remove both of these cars. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the Remove tool, and I'll remove the branches first. And for the branches, I don't think I need to use Generative AI or Object Aware. So I'll turn those off, and I'll get a larger brush by hitting the right bracket key, and we'll come in here. Whoops, don't want to do that. I'm going to undo that because hit Command Z because I started painting too soon. So we'll just come up here like that, see what that looks like. There's kind of a spot there and a little bit of a spot there. And you notice if I hover over it, that kind of overlay comes there. If you want to get rid of that, go to the tool overlay here and go to never, because with that there, you won't be able to brush anywhere in it. You'd have to come outside of it and paint into it, and that's a hassle. So we'll do it this way by turning that overlay off. And look, it's still screwing up in that corner. Still screwing up in that corner. It's getting me upset. It's still up there. Look at that. Look at that. If I wasn't doing the video, it would have been gone by now. All right, there, it's gone. All right, now I want to get rid of the cars, but here's a kind of a quirk of this tool. If I go and I turn Generative AI and Object Aware now, it's going to, whatever that last brush stroke I did, it's going to think I want it for that last brush stroke. and it's going to try to do something there. So in order to get a new brush, you just need to like close down the tool and then reopen it. And then I could click on Generative AI and Object Aware, and then I could come in with my brush and try to remove this car off in the distance first. We'll do this one first. And then come off it, and you can see that it has that red overlay. I don't think I need to add or subtract from it, so I'll click Apply. Now it will consult with Adobe's servers up there, and it will come up with something that I hope is acceptable for this car removal. Now, it's hard to see, and I want to zoom in. You can see I have a brush still. I'd have to close the tool down. The easier way is just hold in the space bar and zoom in. When you hold in the space bar, you can click, and actually that looks excellent. You could try the other variations. There's the second variation. There's a third variation. The third one's the worst one. That second one's okay. It has a window there. This one has a door there. I don't know what's really there. I don't really care that much. I'll go with the window. I kind of like that. All right, hold the space bar, and again, you could zoom out. Now, as I mentioned before, when we didn't have Generative AI and Object Aware on, I had to close this tool down to turn them on. You don't have to do that if you're staying in Generative AI and Object Aware mode to do something else. So I could come in and just start painting on this car. So I don't have to close it down again, is what I'm saying. We'll see if we could get rid of this car. That looks pretty good. We'll click Apply. Let it do its thing. And hopefully it doesn't take forever. Then we're going to zoom in just like I did before, and we're going to look at see how good of a job it did. Hold in the space bar, zoom in. And there's kind of a lot of junk up here in the distance. I don't really care for that. I kind of screwed something up here because I think yeah, let's just start over because I did something wrong. I hit something with my mouse. So we're going to come in here again. We'll stay zoomed in. This might be better. Like this. Now I have Object Aware on. Typically I wouldn't have to do the middle part if it recognized the object, but we'll do it anyway, just to make sure. All right, we'll click Apply. The reason why I did it over is it didn't show variations anymore. It like got me a new tool. I hit my mouse against the keyboard and it screwed something up. So anyway, there's something floating off in the distance here. There's a second variation, which is horrible. Third variation's worse. Let's go with that first one, and then I could come back in here and just try to get rid of that by clicking once, click Apply, let it do its thing, see if it does a decent job on that. And it did. So we're done with removing things. I'm going to hold the space bar and click, zoom out. It looks all right. Now, really, at this point, I am ready to send it to Silver Efex Pro. To do that, you would use the Edit In menu. You could get to the Edit In menu by right-clicking on the thumbnail in the film strip or right-clicking right on the image and going to Edit In. Or you, if you prefer, you go up to Photo and then down to Edit In and over to Nik Silver Efex. Those of you that are familiar with Nik software, they used to call this Silver Efex Pro. They don't call it that anymore. It's just Silver Efex. So we'll go to that. Now, by default, you're going to have a TIFF file format, and that's what I recommend you use. Don't use JPEG. It has PSD there, but it won't be able to edit the PSD files, so it will come up with an error. So use TIFF. I don't like using the sRGB color space, so I could change it here, and then I could change this to 360 because that's what my Epson printer uses. Now, the weird thing, though, is that if I do change it here, well, not that it's weird, but if I do change it here, I'd have to change it every single time. Every single time I send an image to Nik, any of the plugins, I'd have to change it. I can change it permanently. I'm just going to show you how to do that very quickly. Go to Preferences in Lightroom. On a Mac, it's under the Lightroom Classic menu. On a PC, it's under the Edit menu. And if you go to Preferences, you go to the third tab from the left, External Editing, you'll see that it should have Nik Silver Efex here right away. If not, just go to the drop-down, go to Nik Silver Efex, and it will show those settings. Put the settings you want in here. I want to use ProPhoto RGB 360. ProPhoto RGB, there we go, 360 resolution, because that's what it says my Epson printer recommends anyway. So now you'll see up here, it says Nik Silver Efex edited. What you need to do is go to this drop down and go at the very bottom. It says update preset Nik Silver Efex. Just do that. Now that is permanent. And now if I right click on it and go to Edit In or go up to the photo menu and go to Nik Silver Efex, you'll notice that it's there permanently. So I'm good to go. So we'll click at it. So what it will do, Lightroom is going to create this TIFF file, and it's going to bring us into Silver Efex. And by default, it will already be in black and white. What it does, it applies a neutral preset to it right away. So this is kind of a neutral look. And you'll notice something here that it says things to know when you're working on a TIFF file. There is an advantage if you're working on a TIFF file over a JPEG in that if you check this box down here, you'll be able to re-edit the image. So if I do some editing here and I go back into Lightroom and I said, well, I got to reposition a slider that I did in Silver Efex, you'll be able to do it if you have this checked. If you don't have this checked, all those edits you do in Silver Efex will get baked into the TIFF file and you won't be able to re-edit anything. The disadvantage of having this checked is your file's going to be almost twice as big. For most TIFF files I found that I send into Silver Efex and then come back, they're like well over 200 megabytes, where the original raw file was like around 45 megabytes. So they're really big. If you don't check it, it's almost half as big, maybe 100, 120 megabytes, at least on my Nikon raw files. It probably varies from manufacturer type, file type, and so on. But anyway, I'll leave it checked and I'll show you how big it is. Now, usually what I'll do, well, always what I do, is I go to the presets first over in the left-hand panel. I try to find a preset that gets me close to what I want, and then I'll go to the right-hand panel and re-edit anything I need to re-edit. Now, I have some presets over here that I kind of like and I use most often. There's like 5 of them. So what I'll do is I'll go through them. Now, unfortunately, you just can't hover over a preset and it will give you a preview like Lightroom does with presets. You have to actually click on one. So high structure harsh, I kind of like that one usually. So I'll click on that and you can see what that looks like. High structure smooth, times I like that one. I'll go down and let's see, full dynamic range harsh, full dynamic range smooth. I like sometimes those. Full spectrum inverse and fine art process. Now there's quite a few. So if you go through, you'll see you could get like a sepia tones, different tones here, pinhole camera, all different kinds of things you could do. But again, I usually don't use any of those. As a matter of fact, I never use any of those. What I'm going to do is I think this first one I clicked on, high structure harsh. Let's start here. So this would be my starting point. Then I go over to the right-hand panel and I do editing, and you'll start out with global adjustments. See, if you turn off global adjustments, you're back to that initial image we had where nothing was done to it outside of just converting it to black and white. So you can see this specific preset didn't do anything with brightness, highlights, midtone, shadows, or dynamic brightness. You, of course, come in and re-edit anything here you think needs to be re-edited. If you need to reset a slider, just double-click on that slider and you'll reset it. Now, I don't think I need to do anything here. What it did do is it amplified whites, as you could see, and it amplified blacks. Just to give you an idea what it would look like. If I move this to the right, you can see how it's making the blacks a little bit darker. Right? And I kind of like that, but I'm going to show you a different way to do that because I want to show you control points. So I'll leave that the way around where it was. There's also soft contrast. So you have some different controls than you might be familiar with from Lightroom. You can see what this does. Then you have structure adjustments. That's why I didn't do anything in Lightroom to sharpen the image. We could do it here. I like the defaults there. There is fine structure. Sometimes I'll turn that up. On this image, it doesn't look right though. Now, tonality protection, what it will do is if I move this shadow slider to the right, it will take anything that's absolute black and push it to the right. So it will basically, if you're crushing the shadows, you would move this to the right and it would tend to not crush the shadows. And I actually kind of like the way that looks. Highlights, if I move this to the right, it will take the histogram and push it to the left. So if you're blowing out any highlights, it will push the histogram more towards the left, so you will tend to not blow out any highlights. So you can see how that kind of worked. Not bad. Now, I should mention up here, there is the histogram, and I don't know why they have this RGB, red, green, blue, and luminance. Histograms, they're all the same, and pretty much your adjustments will always be with these histograms. They also have the tone or the zone system. If you're familiar with the zone system, it was popularized by Ansel Adams, where you have 11 zones and all the zones are separated by a single stop. And typically, at least Ansel Adams, he used to like to have some tone in his scenes that like across all 11 different stops. And if you hover over these, you'll see a hash pattern come on the image, and you can see where that hash pattern is representing that specific tone. And as I go through, you can see that I have a lot of the tones represented in these different zones. And the zones are numbered from 0 through 10, hence there's 11 different ones. Now, probably if I uncrush the shadows, or I crush the shadows, you can see that first one there, how I have that hash pattern in the shadows there. And then if I go and I move this to the right, I suddenly don't have that anymore. So if you want absolute black in your image, you would have that like that. You could see the hash pattern there, and then you have like the darkest gray, and then a little lighter gray, all separated by one stop. So there's a lot of books on the zone system. You could check up on that. There's a lot of information on the internet, so you don't really have to buy a book. And if you're interested in editing your images for the zone system, you could do that within Silver Efex very easily. Now, personally, I don't. I just look at the image and see if I like it. Sometimes if I print it, I'll find a problem and I'll have to come in and correct it. And I wouldn't have had that problem if I used the zone system. But again, it's something that's there if you need it. So those are the global adjustments. Now, local adjustments are things you could do just to certain parts of your image. Now, there is something to the sky I want to do, and you could use what they call control points. You can see if you hover over these, you'll see the different local adjustments, or the way you could apply different local adjustments. You could do a control point. This is a control line. This is a control polygon. And this last one is a luminance mask. I will do videos where I'll cover all of these different types of local adjustments you could do, because these aren't only common to Silver Efex, they're common across all of the different, or most of the different Nik plugins. So I will do videos covering that, but I'm going to use the most common is the control point. So I'll click on this and I'll activate it, and you can see my cursor becomes kind of this circle, and I'm going to click on what was the blue skies, now is the gray sky. And you can see when I click on it, it has all these adjustments. These are the same exact adjustments that are here. So you could come up here and you could move an adjustment, say brightness. And you'll notice if I move brightness up, it is affecting inside of that circle. What is going on here is it's looking at the tone, texture, and color directly under this like point where I clicked. And now, of course, it's black and white, but the color that was in the color photograph. And then what it will do is it allows you to then adjust these different adjustments for matching tone, texture, and color that is within this circle. So it's not going to affect, because I clicked here on the gray sky, it's not going to affect the white clouds. It's going to only affect the gray sky. As you can see, if I go to move brightness down or up, it will let me do it. There it goes. So you can see like that. Now you'll notice over there on the right-hand panel that the brightness slider is moving over there as well. You could do that adjustments here or wherever you want. So I'm going to just do them here. I want to make the sky a bit darker, let's say. Now you'll see there's handles on the circle. So you could come in and I could expand it so it goes like across the image and get all of that blue sky that is across the top of the image. You can see you could expand this off. Now, I want to darken the blue sky over here and the blue sky over here, or maybe even the blue sky in here. What I could do is I could add another control point, but if I want to add a control point with the exact same settings, and I only move one slider, but quite often you're going to move more than one slider, and here's all the different sliders you could move, obviously. So what I could do, though, instead of just applying a new one, then trying to match my sliders, is just hold in the Alter Option key, Alt PC Option if you have a Mac, and just drag off another one. You'll have the exact same settings. Then I could put it there, and then what I could do with this is I'll grab this handle and pull it in, and this one and pull it down. So we're only affecting kind of the area like in here. Maybe pull it this way a little more, I guess. And then I'll do another one for over in here. I'll hold in that Alt Option key and click on this and drag it over there. And I can't get at this handle down there. It's kind of annoying. So I'll pull up there and then kind of pull down this way. So I'm making the entire sky darker by applying these different control points for the sky, and all of them have the brightness turned down. I could customize it then and come in and just move the individual ones to kind of match everything so it looks as close to one another as possible. So one area isn't necessarily brighter than another, and all the control points you lay down will be over here, and you could see them and you could turn them off, see like a before or after for each of the control points like that. You could view the actual mask. If you click wherever it's brightest is getting the adjustment done the most, and wherever it's darkest, it's not getting the adjustment done at all. So you turn off the mask there. And again, I'll have more information on the different local adjustments you could do in a video, like a standalone video on that, because there's a lot you could do. There's a lot of different adjustments. There's a lot of different ways to view the adjustments, to copy the adjustments, to delete adjustments, to move adjustments around. Local adjustments I'm talking about, so I'm going to do that in its own video. Now, if you go through, these are like the local adjustments, then you have some other things down here, this clear view. You could move this to the right and see what it does. In this case here, I don't need to move it. I think it's fine. If you want to add a color filter as though you were shooting black and white film and you used, let's say, a different, like a red filter, what it would do. See, that darkens the sky. Could use that instead. But you could try different filters, see what they do as though you were shooting film and you put a color filter on your camera lens, because it will then affect the film in a specific way. Usually use like a red filter to darken the sky. Yellow filter is a good compromise, where red filter sometimes darkens it a little bit too much, whereas a yellow filter is a good compromise, will darken it a little bit, but not as much. So you could try the color filter if that's something you like. And you could go, there's different film types you could emulate. So you could go through here and go to this drop down and try these different film types, that you want to, if you want. Typically, I don't do that either. You could add your own grain, things like that. And finishing adjustments here, I usually don't do. I'll do this in Lightroom. It's vignetting. You can burn edges and stuff like that. But I usually just vignette in Lightroom, and that's all I do. So let's say I'm done. I would go here and click Apply. Now, because I have non-destructive edits turned on, this is going to be a relatively large file. And I'll show you the size of the file when we go over in Lightroom. I would guess it's going to be well over 200 megapixels in size. To do that, I'm just going to hit the I key for a couple times here. If I'm clicked on it, let's see. There we go. Hit the I key there. See, so this is the edited file, but it's not showing in black and white. Now and then it will do this. So what you got to do is just click off it, click back on it, and then you'll have this like 3 lines and an up arrow. Click on that, and then click Import Settings from Disk. This is just a Lightroom thing. It has nothing to do with Silver Efex. Just sometimes Lightroom doesn't want to read the metadata from other applications, and it will just show the wrong image. So there we have our black and white image. Now, to see the size of this image, I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to go down to Show in Finder, and there it is right there. It is it's well over 500 megabytes. The original Nikon RAW file was 57.9, so it is like almost 10 times bigger. It's over 9 times as big. So it's a very big file. Now, you could do some editing here if you want to. Usually what I'll do, because I like to add vignettes on my image, I will go here and I'll just add a darker vignette like that. And there's my black and white image from Silver Efex. And by the way, if I did accidentally call it Silver Efex Pro, it's not called that anymore. It's Silver Efex, specifically Silver Efex 7. So that's it. And again, I'll do future videos. I want to get more into the different local adjustments you could apply to an image. And again, that goes across different Nik plugins like Color Efex, Viveza, and stuff like that. And I'll cover that in a separate video. And if there's anything more specific to Silver Efex you want me to do, let me know in the comments, and I'll see if I could do that. And by the way, in the description below this video, I'll have a link to DxO's website, because they are the company that sells Silver Efex. So again, it's a package though. You just can't buy Silver Efex. You buy all the plugins together. Hopefully that made sense. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon.